The Candid Frame is supported by donations by listeners just like you. Help us to bring you great conversations with great photographers. Support the show today with your monthly contribution through our Patreon effort at patreon.com/The Candid Frame, or click on the link in the show notes or the website at thecandidframe.com. Thank you.
This is Ibarrian X, and this is The Candid Frame. Technology has always been a part of photography. Advances like moving from glass plates to film, from large format to 35 millimeter, has created new possibilities for the photographer. But while digital continues to advance what's possible in photography, there's been a surprising resurgence in analog. For some people, shooting with film is a completely new experience. And for others, it's revisiting an old friend. But what's exciting about the process today is that photographers have the ability to blend both analog and digital to produce some exciting and interesting results. Chris Marquardt of the podcast Tips from the Top Floor has been a big proponent of analog photography, and now he's sharing his knowledge and his experience in his new book, The Film Photography Handbook, which he co-wrote with photographer Monica Andre. We sat down to talk about the role of film in the digital age and how he personally has made the use of film a big part of his work as a photographer. Well, Chris Marquardt, welcome again to The Candid Frame. It's always a pleasure to have you. We have a long history together.
Yes, we do.
And it's always great to have a chance to chat. And this time we were going to be talking about your new book, The Film Photography Handbook.
Sounds ominous.
It's so odd for me, and just, I guess, makes me feel old. The whole concept that there are people out there who've never shot film or didn't get started shooting with film. And I know that you came to film after digital.
No. I came to film first. I started in film.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And then I quit that the moment it became feasible for me and affordable for me to get a digital SLR. At that point, I pretty much sold every bit of film photography equipment, of analog equipment that I had, which was mainly my Minolta X700 and a bunch of lenses and things. A couple of years after that, I started regretting that decision.
Why?
Because something was missing. It's really this. I didn't really know what was missing until maybe 10 years after I fully jumped into digital. But at that point, it was kind of this niggly feeling that I had given up on something that might still have some use in my career and my development. It turned out that was the case. And then those 10 years later, when I finally wanted to go back into film photography, at least partially, actually a neighbor knocked on my door and he had this big box and he said, I have this old camera here and I don't really do anything with it. Do you have any use for it? And it was an X700. So kind of magically came back to me, including a few lenses. So I'm pretty much have that back now. It's really interesting.
When you say you were missing something, what was that? Was it the process? Was it, the look of the final result? When you say you were missing something, well,
everything. It's hard to really wrap that around one single point. There are really a lot of different areas where I think film photography has a value, which is the reason why we have written this book. By the way, we is me and my better half, Monica. She really have to make sure to mention her.
Absolutely.
she actually wrote. She's a better writer than I am, so she wrote half of the book. So it's a real collaboration there. Well, okay. Let me try to unravel that. This big ball of I like film photography. First of all, I think it really helps to learn. It's a real good learning tool, and for me, that's one of the things. When you pick up a digital camera, very easily kind of moves the photo taking process kind of moves into this trial and error kind of thing. It happens for a lot of people. It's the same for me in some respects. I mean, just imagine doing some night photography or something that is really technically very difficult. You might resort to trial and error and just have a check the histogram, look what's going on. The moment you don't have that, instant review, you're going to have to learn. You have to force yourself to do it. So it will make you a better photographer. And I can clearly see this at what I call my keeper ratio. You know, the number of pictures that I keep after shooting, or that I think are really cool, or at least good enough for me to show them in public. That doesn't really change between digital and film.
Yeah.
But what changed, the number of pictures that come out don't really change, but the number of pictures that go into the process initially, that changes drastically.
When I think about the lore of film photography, for me, it's the time in the darkroom where I'm free of any distraction. For me, being in the darkroom was a very peaceful place because I was alone.
It's a bit of a meditation, right?
Absolutely. And the fact that, you know, I might have some music going on in the background, but I could be in there for hours trying to work on a print or even just processing a roll of film and going through the rhythmic pattern of just, you know, rolling and turning the developing tank, you know. Mm. That for me is the one thing that I miss about it. But I was never an exacting a technician, which you have to be for at least to be able to be pretty damn good in the dark.
Well, here's the secret. I haven't worked in the darkroom for, I'd say, about 20 years. I have not. And I still haven't really started it back up. We have a room in the house that is going to be the darkroom. It has all the things you need, just needs the blackout curtains, and then it's ready. We have four enlargers standing here that just need to be put on a table. But what I'm doing right now is the hybrid process. It's pretty much bringing the best of both worlds into the field of photography. The film photography, the acquisition is different. Like taking the picture is a different kind of process because you really have to pre-visualize. You have to kind of get the shot. Sometimes you have to cover it and take more, but you have to get the shot. I mean, there's no way around that. I've at this point replaced the darkroom with the digital side of things. So there's a digitization step in there, kind of switching from one area into the other. And then there's the digital side as well, which, I mean, we live in 2016. And the last time most of us have really dealt with film photography was in the last century. Mm-hmm. It's really a long time ago. And back then we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the smartphones. We didn't have the sophisticated ways to process images. And getting a decent light meter is now as easy as buying an app, right? Finding the recipe to develop such and such film at a specific ISO with a specific developer is now just a look in a database. There's a lot of tools out there that help us kind of get this moving with the times. I mean, this really needed an update. You know, the times have changed. So it's much more convenient now, including simple things like I don't know, an app that helps you time the development process and that tells you, oh, by the way, now it's time to put the fixer in. So really kind of bringing that into today's world. And the combination is really where I feel really at home at this point, because I have that side that forces me to grasp things, to really touch, to touch the camera, to touch the film, to make this into a very haptic kind of experience. Yeah. And on the other side, I'm trying to use as many conveniences as I can that the modern times bring me.
Who did you write this for? Who's the photographer who would be interested in picking up this book in either returning to film or trying film for the first time?
It's pretty much the same audience that I see on our film photography workshops, which is First of all, someone who wants to go back to to analog photography. Film photographers who have switched, such as me, have switched to digital and then kind of notice that, wait a minute, something might be missing there, and who kind of want to get back in touch with this. But there's an interestingly high number of young people or digital natives who never shot a roll of film, who never did that, and who are curious what this is about. And I'm not talking about the hipster crowd. I'm talking about people who are really interested in that. I mean, shooting film for the sake of nostalgia, I don't think that really covers it for me. I love old cameras. Don't get me wrong. We have Monica and I together, I think we have like 60 film cameras in the house. So, which also is fueled a bit by the fact that you can get them so cheap now.
Yeah.
Go on eBay. You get a film SLR for $10. You can get to the point where you shoot film and develop it yourself for under $100. It isn't expensive to do. I get this a lot. People say, yeah, but why would I want to do this? Every shot costs money. And when you do the math and you factor in the cost for a new DSLR or a new mirrorless camera, you quickly get to the point that you can shoot a lot of rolls of film until you
think about the computer and you think about the hard drive space and the additional RAM.
Well, we're doing the hybrid process here, so I have to factor in the computer.
But I'm just saying that, and people, when they start thinking about comparison costs, if you look at not just the camera, but the investment you have to make in a computer and all these elements in order to be able to do digital processing of your photography, you're talking thousands of dollars. So either way, it's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be inexpensive. It's an expensive hobby, always has been, always will be, at least for the people who, really want to get serious about it.
Well, it's a question, because I also think times have changed in that respect. What I remember from back in the 80s when I was still shooting film, and in the 90s, it was this, okay, I need to be really precise. I need to make sure it comes out the same every time. I have really reproducible results all the time. That's where I go digital. That's where I shoot digital, because I know how I can be surgically precise with digital. If I shoot analog, it's more of a creative endeavor. It's more of okay, let me try this out. Monica, for example, loves shooting expired film. She has some rolls of Provia that are 10 years old. And what happens with film, with color film, when it ages is it changes its colors. Some of the colors fade, some of them are stronger, and then you get some sort of a random element in there. And we all know how often a random element can kind of mix things up and make you more creative and give you new impulses. Or the field of toy cameras, for example. If you look at a Holga, some photos just need some camera like that. I've seen this blog entry. Someone did actually a shoot of an old derelict building with 5 different cameras. One being a 4x5 large format camera, one being a digital medium format camera, and a DSLR of full frame, and a smaller one, and a Holga. And the Holga picture was the one that blew all the other ones out of the water, because it had the right feeling, it had the right mood, and it was very different. Now, Holga is a plastic lens camera. There's nothing special from a technical point of view. It is probably one of the least technical cameras right now. All you can do, well, at least with some Holga models, you can't even change the aperture. So all you can do is press the shutter and that's it. So taking that tech side out of things, limiting yourself is a very creative, is a booster for your creativity. Photographers know that limitation in general is a booster for creativity. If you don't have all the tools at your disposal that you usually have, you have to become creative. You have to think around outside the box.
Is that your answer to people who say, "Oh, I can get those effects using filters on my phone or
totally
on Photoshop"? And people, when they ask you, "Well, why go to film when I can do all these things in digital on the computer? And then if I screw it up, I can always start all over again." Is that your answer? This idea that by simplifying, you are sort of challenging yourself in a way that you can't possibly do when you have all these tools and resources available to you in the world of digital?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with a plugin like Silver Effects. It has beautiful results. The results might be to a certain extent indistinguishable from what you get, but taking that variety out of the process, making the process a more limited one, is going to get you to into a new ideas, is going to help you add more creative tools to your toolbox, because you have to, because you don't have a choice. I mean, look at that. Everyone has that. A band that you were really into and their first album was amazing, and they did this on a shoestring budget. And then the second album, when they were discovered and signed with a major label, they got all the money they needed and more. And the second album was okay. And the third one was kind of meh, you know. The moment you add all those possibilities, and the moment you don't have to make a decision, you kind of move that to a later step in the process. Sooner or later, you will have to make the decisions. And sometimes it's really better to make the decision first and work within that limitation. We did this on a recent workshop. I actually went on eBay and bought 24 box cameras, old box cameras, 120 film, roll film cameras. And then what we did, and this was a long workshop, a 5-day workshop. What we did on the first day is we handed out those cameras and gave each of the participants a roll of 120 film. And in a box camera, a 6x9 box camera, that's 8 pictures.
Wow.
And no technology to play with. You can't do anything with these cameras other than point them somewhere, frame a picture, and then take the picture. And for everyone in that group, everyone laughed at first. It's like, okay, okay. And we explained what it's about, how the camera works. And then I gave them 2 hours to take those 8 pictures. And you should have seen the faces, like, wow, you crazy, 8 pictures. I do these in 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
After the first of those 2 hours, I walked around just to check in with everyone and see how they were doing. And several of them were like, I only have 3 so far. It's really a good experience. And most of them learned something. Most of them got something out of that. It was a very new experience for them and a very interesting thing to do. And I look at the amount of pictures I shoot in digital right now, and it's drastically less than I did before I came back to film photography.
Yeah, I mean, there are just way too many bad pictures on my hard drive. You know, pictures that the way I describe it is that most of the pictures that I take are just a matter of practice. You know, it's me sort of practicing my way of seeing, and it's not just only the search for that singular image, but it's oftentimes just getting into the practice of seeing, reacting, and shooting.
Definitely.
So, but restricting yourself, like in the way that you just described, is I think just as important. I like going out there and just not shooting 300 photographs. You know, giving my.
I mean, you know, I've written a book before that, which is a small ebook, which is about how to plow through 1,000 pictures in 1 hour in Lightroom. Okay, so I've pretty much looked at this from the end of the process. You have 5,000 pictures. Now, what do you do with them, and how do you stop more pictures piling up? Which makes it an even more daunting task to start doing them, because it's an avalanche kind of coming down on you. So after that, I started realizing that, well, as nice as this might be to be able to process a lot of pictures in a very short time, how about the concept of not taking as many pictures and just not making this pile so big? So I see the film photography handbook kind of as one tool in that part of the process, it's just a puzzle piece in a bigger thing. But I think at least what film photography has done for me is it has made me a better photographer. It has changed the way I look. It has changed the way I approach photography. It has changed the way I don't delay decisions anymore. That's one more step there. One more thing. When we shoot digital nowadays, there are so many decisions that we can delay. I mean, the framing, just shoot more, you know, and just use your 5 gajillion megapixels to crop later. So the framing, you can decide, at least partially, you can decide the framing. The color, of course, you can, when you shoot RAW, you can change the colors anytime. The lighting, look at what you can do in Lightroom. The burning and dodging there, you can do a lot. The contrasts, massive changes in contrast possible with today's sensors. even the timing, just shoot a burst. You see this with like wildlife photographers a lot. An animal starts moving, they shoot 50 frames and choose the one good one later. And the problem is the point at the moment when you can delay all these decisions, most people will, because it's very convenient to do so. And then you're just piling that up on the other end. So what film also kind of teaches you is that making a decision and sticking to it might be a good thing.
Yeah.
And with film, you have to. The moment you put a roll of black and white film in your camera, your world is black and white. The type of film determines the contrast, at least to a certain extent. The type of film determines how good you have to be with your metering. The type of film determines the amount of grain and so on. So you have a lot of decisions that you are now moving to the start of this process and not to the end. And that will not only kind of show you over and over again that it might be a good thing, that will also free you up in the end of the process. It will really, a lot of the stuff is already in the box and it's already done the way it is. And by not being able to change it, you will have to think about it first. And that then loops back into this becoming a better photographer, because you have to think about it. So you are forcing yourself to think about these things.
I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation and the many that we've been sharing with you over the past several months. Some of these recent conversations have been some of my favorites, and I have more great conversations for you before the summer is over. Right now, I'm dedicating virtually all my time to improving the show and sitting with some great photographers. I've been able to do that because of your support and help over the years, but especially now as I work towards making TCF an even greater resource for you. So thanks to the many people who've reached out to encourage and support the work that we're doing. And if you haven't already, today is a great time to contribute. Through Patreon, you can support the show with regular monthly donations of $2, $5, $10, $25 or more, or anything in between. Your donations of any amount are the means by which we will improve the show and bring you more great conversations with the world's best photographers. Contribute today by visiting patreon.com/thecandidframe or click on the link in the show notes or the website at thecandidframe.com. Thanks. So, what is someone who currently only owns a digital camera? What do they need just to start off with? Let's say they really don't want to go full bore and build a darkroom and do all that, but they do want to start playing around with it. What are the basic things that they need to have in order to be able to do that?
Get a box camera, get a Brownie, something along those lines. It'll cost you, well, if you pay more than $5 for that camera, it's probably too expensive. You will find people who want more for that on eBay, but all those 24 box cameras that I bought, all of them were €1, the camera, and €5 for the shipping. So it was really, it's very cost effective. And then get a roll of film. If your local drugstore or grocery store doesn't carry film anymore, which is very likely at this point, then go to B&H Photo, or there are lots of online dealers who have film and who specialize in that. So you can still get everything. Get a couple of rolls of film, put them in the camera, and when you're done, get them to your local drugstore, Walgreens, or others will still process film for you. They will still take the film, send it off to the lab, and return the pictures to you, just the way it used to be. So that is probably the quickest way to get started. Or if you want to have a bit more control, if you want to play with more technology in this context, get an SLR, a used SLR, an old Canon or an old Nikon, or probably not more than $10 to $20 for that on the usual portals. And then that's all you need: a roll of film, a camera, and a drugstore. That's all you need. And
then they'll scan the images to like a...
Yeah, you will typically, with most of these services, you will get the scan done for you. It's usually a checkbox somewhere. And then they will give you a link to download your digitized pictures, and you will get the film developed back. And if you want, you get paper prints, which is another thing. I mean, the printing of pictures is kind of a lost art these days.
Yeah.
And having pictures around, having pictures up on my walls, especially my own pictures up on my walls is one of the best things to learn more about myself and my own photography, because I surround myself with pictures, and that really changes my relation with the pictures. So that's another component in that. When you send in a roll of film for development, yeah, sure, get the prints. They don't even have to be big. Just get a bunch of prints, put them up on the fridge and have them around. And then you'll sooner or later learn something about your pictures because you see them so much. We don't see pictures long enough these days. They're just on the screen for a second or two and then they're gone.
And I think you missed the real advantage of going back to film is the idea of the print. Whether it's a digital print or a silver-based print, there's something about holding a physical manifestation of the photograph that's always intoxicating to me. Anytime I go to a gallery or I have an opportunity to hold a print, especially a silver-based print, that's when that little gremlin in my head goes, you should go back to film. Just because it's just like, oh my God, it's a very cathartic experience to me to hold a photograph.
I've just recently seen something on YouTube where Adam Savage of the Mythbusters, they did a live tour, and he has his portrait taken on stage. It's a tintype portrait, so it's an old process from the 1850s, and not just does the photographer take his picture on a big tintype. I mean, we're really talking a good size here. I think probably bigger than 8x10. And not only does the photographer take that picture on stage, no, he also develops it on stage. They pretty much put the whole theater in red light, so he can work under red light. All the audience is part of that dark room, and then you see him do the chemistry, and you see that picture kind of come to life, come out of nowhere. That is a magical moment. That's a really magical moment. I suggest everyone watch that 5-minute video. It's really interesting to watch, and it really brings home a point about the haptic nature of this, which you never have with digital.
When you were writing the book, I mean, when I came up, there were so many books about photography that walked you through the whole process of, processing your film, chemistry, so on and so forth. But as we've been talking about, a lot of things have changed. A lot of films are not available. Certain chemistry is not available. So in updating this book, what were some of the important things that you felt you needed to put in it to make sure that it was up to date and reflects analog photography now in 2016?
Well, first of all, these days we get a hold of cameras in a different way. You buy them used. Film cameras there are a lot out there. So one of the things we made sure to have in there is kind of a helper chapter on how to find these cameras and what to look out for when you get them. Because you might get a 30-year-old camera that might have broken light seals or where the shutter doesn't work anymore. So these are all things to kind of watch out for. We definitely have the step-by-step instructions on how to develop film in there and how to scan it, which I don't think any of the last century photo books do have. So it is updated for 2016. It includes all these details. It also includes a good chapter on what are these different cameras? What are we looking at here? What's the difference between an SLR and a Mamiya 645 and a Rolleiflex and a Pentax 6.7 and so on? So we pretty much go from the small formats, the 35 millimeter, which in the analog world is small. Mm-hmm. The German phrase for that is Kleinbild, which translates to small picture. 35 is small, and then we go up to 4x5 inches large format photography, and we kind of give this overview and make sure that people have an understanding how to frame that in today's photography world, because the development on the digital side has started from a different end. The initial sensors were really small, and then they started growing, and now the 35 millimeter format is called full frame, which suggests that it's kind of really big. But when you look at film, it's not that big actually. So it includes the things that you might need to not just get started and do it, but to also understand there's a bit of history in there. And it kind of helps you put things in their place in your mind and sort things a bit.
Let's talk about films. Is there for people starting out, what films do you think are a good place to begin with? Because when I was coming up, God, I hate saying that because it makes me feel so dated, but there were so many choices. Tell me about some of the films that you think would be a good place to start for people who are, just getting their feet wet.
Well, there are still a lot of films available. I mean, Kodak still makes film, Fuji still makes film. There are still a lot of European brands. Ilford still in the market. ADOX is still there. The usual suspects are mostly still there. So if you want to start in black and white, a Fuji Neopan Acros is a great choice to start with. Of course, Kodak Tri-X, many photographers' favorite film because of the way its grain looks and it works with the contrast and with the gray distribution. It's just kind of a favorite of mine too. If you're into finer grain things, Kodak T-Max is still around. So on the black and white side, we still have a whole bunch of films, and we have a list in the book. So I'm actually just bringing that up here as a reference. Slide films, still a few around, even though not that many anymore. But Fuji Chrome, you still get Provia and Velvia. Aqua Scala is still there. The color negative films still, the Portras are still around. For example, Kodak Portra is a favorite of many color negative photographers. Fuji Color, the Superiors are still around. There's some Aqua Photo Vista out there. And then there are a whole bunch of special films, a whole bunch of films that are, that are a bit different. For example, you get special film now for cross-processing. You've probably done that when you use negative film and process it in the chemistry for slide film or vice versa, which you can and which will yield interesting results in terms of the contrast and the colors. Now, there are actually films on the market that are made for that are kind of formulated so that they work really well in that context. There is even special red scale film out there, which is film. Well, if you look at it from a technical side, it is color negative film that has been reversed. So the light hits the film from the rear, not from the front. And that changes the way it processes the colors. So film is still there. There's a bunch of film out there. And, there are actually a few projects on the way right now where companies try to revive old film factories. For example, Italy, Ferrania, big company, they've done a big Kickstarter project to shrink and to repurpose the test development lab into a new film manufacturing facility, and they're on the way of doing that. There are others that try similar stuff. There are new players on the market, Galaxy, for example, who have also, thanks to crowdfunding, been able to bring positive paper back. Well, there is positive paper, which is pretty much film paper that you put in a camera and then expose it, and you have a positive picture on the paper. And the best known of those so far was from Ilford. The problem was that the Ilford one is very slow. It doesn't have a very high ISO. I don't know where it is, but it's probably below 5. Uh-huh. Whereas the Galaxy guys have actually managed to get an ISO 80 positive paper. So you can actually take snapshots, short exposure pictures on positive paper. And they have now brought a product that is equally interesting. They have changed the form factor of that into the shape of a 120 roll of film. So they now have a 120, they sell a 120 roll of positive paper. Just imagine that. Oh. That's the kind of creativity that I don't think would be possible in digital at this point. But in film has turned into this playground almost, where people start trying out new things and experimenting again. And that's a very good example for that.
What genre or what subject matter do you favor for, using analog, for using film photography? sort of gravitate to a particular area?
The moment I started exploring film again was when I realized that I could actually afford a medium format camera. This was really wait a minute, 6x6, 6x7. A lot of pro photographers are selling their gear for cheap. I bought a Mamiya 645 with 2 lenses for under $200. And that was kind of when I fell back into film photography, and exploring the bigger formats has really made an impact on me, because I mean, bigger sensors change the way we work with depth of field. They change the way the tones distribute in the picture, and you end up discovering a new facet of photography. And that has taken me up to 4x5. So large format photography has become a real fun thing for me to do. And with all the possibilities that it brings, I mean, being able to change the way lines fall in the picture, being able to change where the sharpness is in the picture, all the rise and falls and tilt and shift and swing and whatever you can do with these cameras. A friend of mine called it pure anarchy. That's kind of what it is. But it also forces you to really get a thorough process down, because in large format photography, you end up being it's easy to make mistakes, because all the steps that a modern camera would do for you, you have to do yourself. And that includes a lot of steps for a single picture. So it brings me back to the process, but the kind of photography that works really well there is landscapes and architecture. Those two are very, they benefit from this type of a camera and from this approach. And this is my meditation. When I set up for a day of large format photography, I go up with my camera and I might have, 10 frames in the pocket. I might have 10 unexposed sheets of film in my bag. And after that day, I return home and I might have 6 of them exposed. Because setting up for a picture just takes its time, and setting up the framing, and then metering the light and waiting for the right moment. And it's a ballet almost that you have to do. And that really brings me down. It really brings a lot of calm if you spend, 20 minutes on one picture.
I feel that same way, but it's portraiture. The idea of sitting down there with a Hasselblad with an 80 millimeter lens with 12 exposures and photographing someone, that experience is so much different than shooting them with a DSLR and shooting 150 photographs. Completely different.
Yes.
And that's when I'm tempted, tempted to, okay, let me try this film thing again.
Maybe we'll lure you back.
We talked a little bit about your workshop. So, but why don't you tell people a little about, if they're interested in doing one of those with you, what to expect, what's involved in that?
Well, I have in the last years, I have moved more to photo tours. So I'm a curious person. I want to see the world, and being able to do that while doing the second thing that I love, which is giving people these aha moments, these, now I understand something better, moments. That is kind of the magic crossover for me. And so traveling while teaching is kind of really the thing that I think, I will be doing for a very long time. So, luckily I'm now able to do that, and, to offer tours to all sorts of places. I've been to the Himalayas a lot. I've been to, Ireland. I'm going back there in September. This year actually, in early spring, I went to Siberia, to Lake Baikal, which is the biggest freshwater lake in the world, and the clearest one, and the most frozen one as well. So it was a wonderful experience to be on and around that lake. You have no idea how interesting ice can be, even after 5 days of shooting it. I'm going to Greenland in August. That one is sold out, which was a surprise for me because it kind of fell into my lap, and I thought, well, let me try this, and it really hit a spot with people. And we're now going to Greenland with my friend John Miller as a co-host, and 16 people in total. Bhutan is on the list. Svalbard, the Arctic archipelago is on the list for next year in May. So it's really kind of this seeing the world while learning to shoot kind of thing. And even I have to learn new things or try to apply things that I already knew to completely new situations. And that's what makes it interesting, because you end up somewhere. We were in Ethiopia at a live volcano. How do you shoot a live volcano? I've never done that before. So it's really this, okay, let me see. What are the things I learned over the last 10 years that might be able to save my butt here?
And you're taking film and digital on each of these excursions?
No, not on all of them, but I have to bring film back. Monica is a bit more strict in that regard. She was with me in Ethiopia. She didn't bring a digital camera. She brought her Pentax 667, and she shot somewhere between 50 and 60 rolls of film. And she's still working her way through it. And, the interesting thing is, I brought digital photos. I brought a few thousand of digital photos home, did my usual thing and worked through them. And she is taking her time, and every roll of film has a few surprises on it. And I look over her shoulder and see her pictures after she digitized them. And I find so many good pictures there where I think, why didn't I see that? Why didn't that show itself to me? So that's the travel side. And then here in Germany, I'm doing a lot of shorter workshops, like weekend workshops around different topics. They're mostly themed around, there's one light workshop coming up, a people photography workshop coming up. Actually, one interesting one where I'm teaming up with a psychologist is about perception, about why do people see pictures the way they see them, or how do people look at pictures? What is important? How does it work? So we've been exploring that to a pretty good depth. So the psychology of photography, and it helps you as a photographer or as someone who's a visual person in general, because the moment you understand what happens when someone else looks at your picture, you will be able to fine-tune that to work better, to have a better impact, or to tell your story better. So that was always interesting for me, to look kind of behind the scenes and to understand why things are the way they are.
That's fascinating. Well, my last question is, I ask my guests to recommend another photographer for our listeners to discover and explore, and can be anyone, someone you've long admired or someone you've recently discovered. So who would that one photographer be, and why?
You stumped me. Let me think. It should be a film photographer, I think, as a good kind of follow up to this one, a film photographer, Monica.
Oh, okay.
She's really deep into film photography, probably deeper than I am. She'll hate me for that. She will hate me for that, but I think she has a lot to say about it.
And her full name is Monica?
Monica Andre.
Okay.
Last name Andre.
Awesome.
And she wrote the other half of the book. She's perfect.
That's great. Well, Chris, thank you so much for making time for me this morning. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks to Chris Marquardt for his time and generosity. Rocky Nook, the publisher of the Film Photography Handbook, has made a copy available for me to give away to one lucky listener. To be eligible, all you need to do is share the episode on your social network, either Facebook or Twitter, and use the hashtag TCFFilm. That's TCF Film with 2 Fs. In a couple of weeks, we'll pick a winner and send out a copy of the book. To find out more about Chris, his podcast, and his workshops, visit tipsfromthetopfloor.com. Please remember that you do make a big difference to our show. Take the time today to write a review in the iTunes store. It helps increase our ranking and creates greater awareness of the show. I want to send out a shout out to Jan Sievers from Germany, Loafer Webb from France, and Tani Sixtoes from Sweden for their 5-star reviews of the show. Thank you so much. You can also support the show by making a regular monthly contribution through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/thecandidframe or you'll find the link in the show notes and on the Candid Frame website. Thanks to all of you who've recently contributed to the show, including Mike Waller. To access our complete archive of interviews, download the free Candid Frame app, available for Apple iOS, Android, and Windows 8. Links for each can be found in the show notes and the website at thecandidframe.com. The Candid Frame's audio engineer is Martin Taylor, who you can find at theothermartintaylor.com. The show's senior producer is Cynthia Parker, and our music is from Kevin MacLeod, whose royalty-free music can be found at incompetech.com. And this is Ibadian X, and this is The Candid Frame.